Hi, this is Vicki with the Paper Connection. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States, and I'm so happy that you're here with me today. Today I'm going to make this lovely fun fold card. It's created by using Toile Christmas and Toile Tidings paper. Now, I don't know if you remember or if you caught my last video, but I made this beautiful card, and in making it, and when I used the stitched rectangle dies here, I had a piece that came out of it. Well, I thought, well, I need to use that, so what can I use it for? And I came up with this lovely card. So it's going to be our fun fold card, and we're going to use this lovely piece today. So we're going to use garden green. One of the things I love about Stampin' Up! Products is, like for instance, when you purchase a package of this designer series paper, on the cardboard on the back it's going to tell you that you can use real red and early espresso and very vanilla, different colors like that. It will give you a list of colors that would go along great with these. And so I chose to go with the garden green, which also has the coordinating ribbon and the coordinating enamel glitter dot. So what we're going to do today, it's somewhat of a gatefold, but it's a little bit more complicated than a gatefold. You don't have to write this down because all of the dimensions will be at the bottom of the video in the description, as well as all of the supplies that I used. But I did cut the paper at 5.5 by 8.5, and it is scored. The only way I know to do it is score 2 1/8 on this side, then turn it around and do 2 1/8 on that side. Math is not my forte, people. And so then, but you know how I came up with that? I just took my paper and I made it meet in the middle, and I did like that, and then I measured it. So if you're wanting to know how to do some of these fun folds and you don't have directions for them, just play with it. It's paper, you know? Just play with it. So now I'm just going to take my bone folder and go along the creases and burnish those real quick light. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring in my paper. I usually do all my stamping first, but we're going to do it a little opposite today. And you can see the red on this side and the garden green on this side. We are going to use the garden green side. And I cut these 2 inches by 5 3/8 because I didn't want a whole lot of the garden green sticking out. And you have to be really careful when you're putting it down so that you make sure that you get your edges all even. Okay? One of the best ways that I know to make sure your edges are even is to look at your corners. Are your corners there and your corners here lining up? Okay, I can tell you right now they're not. So I need to scooch it over a bit. And that's the great thing about Tombow, is it will let you do that. You also want to make sure when you close it that it's pretty well lined up along the top and the bottom as well. Okay. I'll go ahead and glue this on, but I'm not going to attach this just yet. I'm going to do some stamping before we do that. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and bring in our paper and let's get our stamping done. I'm going to use black memento, and I'm going to stamp up. I'm going to use black memento on my leaf right here. And I'm just going to stamp it right in here because I'm going to cut it out, and that I want to save as much of my paper for later as I can. So this is for the inside, and we're going to stamp, "May this season be filled with beautiful moments and happy memories." So let's bring this right here. And there we go. As I'm bringing in my watercolor pencils, I'm using Early Espresso, Garden Green, and Cherry Cobbler. I didn't have a real red, I don't think. Yes, I did. So let me use real red. So we're going to go in here and we're going to just go ahead and color the berries. And you know what? It's okay if all of it doesn't get colored. You're going to use a blender pen, which is going to just shift the ink around. These watercolor pencils are fantastic. They write so smoothly, and when you apply the blender pen to it, it just moves the ink around. It makes it look like you've been watercoloring. Now I'm just going to take my blender pen, and it really doesn't matter which end. One is thicker than the other. I just want to make sure I don't have any other colors on there. So, and the way you do that is just rub it on your paper and it will clean off. And you start with your lightest color. In this case, I think that my red is going to be the lighter, and you just move it in a circle and it will move that ink right around. Fill in those little gaps. Okay, then you're going to get that red off like that because you don't want to mix your colors. Then we're going to move on to the green, and you might be able to see it a little bit better here, but see it just moving and shifting, filling up that leaf. All right, I'm going to use a piece of this for something else. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut that out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my embossing buddy because I'm going to do a little embossing. And what this is it cuts off any static that might be on the paper that might cause you to, like any of the embossing powder, to stick to it where you don't want it to be. Then you're going to bring in your Versamark. Versamark is a watermark stamp. You can use it a couple ways. You can actually stamp on cardstock and let it dry and it looks like it's been watermarked. Or you can, I'm going to do a little crooked so I can make use of all the paper. You can ink it on paper such as this. And you can't see it, but it is there. Now what I'm going to do is bring in a coffee filter, and I'm also going to bring in my gold stamping embossing powder. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to shake it over the top of it like this. I use a coffee filter, and then you just tap like that. Just like that. And if you see that there's any spots that you don't feel like you got very well, like there's a little spot right there, I'm just going to put a little bit more on it. Shake it. Like that. Then I'll bring my little pot back in and I'll angle my coffee filter, or pinch it basically, and pour it back in like that. And you don't make a big mess that way. And coffee filters are pretty cheap, so when you're using different colors, you don't want to keep the coffee filter because you don't want to contaminate your colors. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I'm going to bring in my my embossing gun, and I'm a little too far away from the plug to get too far in here, but I'm going to turn it on for a second and I'm going to let it heat up, and then I'll start. I'm going to go from the back side and the front, and you can watch it as it just basically just crystallizes, or it melts, I guess is what it is. It doesn't crystallize, it melts. And you'll see what it looks like then. It's fantastic, but I'm going to fast forward through that. Okay, and look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? It's now embossed in gold, and it gets pretty hot, so you want to hold it off to the edge when you do it. The other thing is, just know that a blow dryer is not hot enough to make this happen. You actually have to have an embossing gun that's created for this purpose. Okay, so I've brought in my Big Shot, and I'm going to place, I have my magnetic platform on. I'm going to place my dies over. I want to make sure that I don't get it crooked. Okay, let's go ahead and put our project together. So basically what we're going to do is I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to put dimensionals on half of it. I'll just tear off a piece to go right here in the middle. Okay. Now before you put this down, the trick to this is you have to get your ribbon wrapped around. And so what I like to do is to make sure how much I need. So I'll bring it over like this and see what it would take for me to actually tie a bow. And it would be maybe about that much. So I'm just going to cut it at an angle, and then I'll put that to the side. Okay, and still I want to make sure, so I'm going to go ahead and tie a bow. Okay, see, I see that I'm going to need a little bit more space, a little bit more on that side, so let's see how this works. Okay, that looks like that's probably going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, and I don't want to have to fight with it, so I'm going to use a glue dot right here across the back. And that way I'm going to know that it's going to stay put. Okay, so I'm not going to have to fight to keep it in the right place. I'm going to be able to bring it over here and know that it's going to work. Okay, before I do that though, before I get a bow tied, let's go ahead and put this on the inside of our card. Okay, put that right there in the middle. And again, all of the measurements will be at the end of the video. Not at the end of the video, but in the bottom, in the comment section of the video. All right, so we're going to pull it like that, and then we're going to go vertical with it like this. Now I would put a glue dot on here, but to keep it in place, but the problem is it's still got to open, and that might defeat the purpose of doing that. So then we're going to just use your finger to put it in place, wrap this around, tuck it through, and then pull. Okay, now you might have to play with it a little bit to make sure that you get it pretty, because you know how bows can be, especially like when you're doing it in front of people. They just kind of don't want to be pretty, but that's not too bad actually. Okay, so then I'm going to take these dimensional backings off, make a mess over here, and I only want these to be on this side, and I can feel that they are, and I want it to be pretty much just centered in the middle of the card, about like that. Okay, yes, it is, and I can see it's wanting to come up a little bit. That's normal. I'll tie that tighter in a minute. All right, the next thing we're going to do is take our glue, and you're just going to put glue on these flower and leaf edges, and you can put it down like that as well, and you're going to kind of put it at a little bit of an angle so that it will fit, just like that. Isn't that pretty? It's very simple, but it's so pretty. And then the last thing I'm going to do, let me get my little, it seems like I'm forever running out of dimensionals. I use them so much. I'll just go on this side. These are my little adhesive scissors. I have scissors that I like to use for paper, scissors I like to use for adhesives, and scissors for material. I came home one day, my sweet husband, he's a gem. He is wonderful, but he almost lost his life. I'm telling you. He had my paper scissors, my Stampin' Up! Paper scissors, out on the grill outside. Oh, mercy. He didn't know how much he was putting his life at risk. Not really. I wouldn't kill him. No way. Would not kill him. Wouldn't hurt him for the world. But I do have to tell you, I did threaten him. Leave my scissors alone. So now I'm going to bring in my Take Your Pick tool, and we're just going to put some pretty embellishments in place. Okay, So let's put a big one right over here. And we'll put a medium-sized one right over in here. But isn't that nice? I love it. I'll show you another one that I did. This one I used the Merry Christmas. And I love that it's thinner, but because there's print on it, it's a lot harder to get it just right, because you do want this to be printed up here and this to be printed in, so it's a lot of fiddling. So I just went back with this, but aren't those beautiful? I love them. I can see I used the cherry cobbler on that one, but anyway, love them. So check out the instructions, and I would love to see your project. It doesn't have to necessarily be the Tidings, the Toile Christmas or Toile Tidings. You could use any other paper. You could use the Perfectly Plaid. I would love to see your projects though. So just tag me in them and leave your comments. If you liked this video and you would like to see more, please hit subscribe. Please feel free to share my videos and to leave any questions or comments that you have. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a fantastic